Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Saturday everybody. I hope you're all enjoying your weekend. Let's start with several general economic updates and then move to the question of whether we are seeing the end stages of the current form of the Chinese economy. This week we learned that approximately 20 localities in China are utilizing so-called special purpose bond quotas to finance infrastructure projects, quote, in yet another round of efforts to boost the country's slowing economy, end quote, in the words of one analyst. By allowing local governments to raise more proceeds through special purpose bonds issuances, China is injecting more capital to fund its so-called all-out infrastructure investment campaign and boost growth. We remember that special purpose bonds are a debt instrument issued by local governments and typically used to fund infrastructure projects. The total amount of special purpose bonds localities can issue every year is proposed by the State Council, in theory is okayed by the National People's Congress, with the annual quota distributed by the Ministry of Finance. Here, unused special purpose bonds does not mean quota unused from this year, but rather quota that was unused in previous years. If a local government doesn't use all its special purpose bond quota allocated in a given year, it accumulates that quota, which can then be used at a future time. Ultimately, of course, special purpose bonds are bonds, that is, debt. In August, the State Council instructed local governments to use more than 500 billion RMB, $70 billion of unused special purpose bond quota for investing in infrastructure. Financial outlet Yicai reports that as of this week, at least 19 cities and provincial level regions will be using this extra budgetary debt. As we've been following this closely this year, we have seen just how bad the fiscal conditions of many local governments are, with revenue, especially from land sales, down, and expenditure, especially for zero-COVID measures and growth targets, greatly up. The just mentioned 19 localities include municipalities like Beijing, the capital, and the wealthy Fujianese coastal city of Xiamen. The total amount of unused special purpose bonds quota to be used by these localities has reached over 350 billion RMB. $50 billion. Next up, German car maker Volkswagen AG has announced that it will invest 2.4 billion euros, $2.3 billion in a joint venture with Chinese firm Horizon Robotics Inc. to set up an autonomous driving unit in China. The joint venture will, quote, develop automated and assisted driving systems for China, integrating numerous functions on one chip to save costs and lower energy consumption, end quote, according to a company statement from Volkswagen on Thursday of this week. As we have seen, China is already the largest market in the world for new energy vehicles, and many foreign car makers, despite growing concerns towards China-based operations generally voiced by corporate America, Europe and Japan, want a piece of that action. We remember in September, both Tesla and domestic EV maker BYD saw record sales in China, supported in part by generous government subsidies. China already accounts for roughly 40% of Volkswagen's deliveries. VW says that its joint venture will, quote, enable us to tailor our products and services even faster and more consistently to the needs of our Chinese customers, end quote. A subsidiary of the German manufacturer will take a 60% stake in the joint venture. However, recent US restrictions on semiconductors will likely cause headaches for this new partnership, especially in the design and production of advanced chips in China. Next up, and on this general theme, in Dubai this week, a self-driving car developed by a flight unit owned by upcoming Chinese new energy vehicle company XPeng Inc. finished its first overseas test flight. The company says that it now plans to start sales within 2 years. According to the company president Zhao Deli, the vehicle will target, quote, wealthy people in the Middle East, end quote. According to the company, the XPeng Voyager X2 can both drive on land as well as take off, fly and land autonomously. The vehicle can also be piloted, but a flying license is required, the details of which are currently being negotiated with the United Arab Emirates authorities. According to the company, the Voyager X2 is a multi-copter aircraft which holds 2 passengers, has 8 propellers, 8 electric motors, which are powered by batteries, has a maximum speed of 130 kilometers per hour, 81 miles per hour, and a flight time of 35 minutes. As we have seen with new energy vehicles generally, Chinese policymakers are betting big on the eventual widespread uptake of this kind of technology, hoping to be a major player in an important new commercial technology. But analysts warn that it is still very early days for this kind of technology, which will likely be highly capital intensive. Last year, this flying car company, Xpeng Aero HT, received $500 million in Series A funding, a round which included private equity investor Hill House Capital. I guess we will see how things pan out for the company and its investors. Now, next up is at the end of the Chinese economy as we know it. Hey guys, if you like China Update and you appreciate what I'm trying to do here with the channel and you'd like to help me keep it sustainable, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. This is the best way to help me continue making these episodes for you guys every day here on YouTube. If you like today's episode, don't forget to hit the like button, and as always, thank you so much everybody for the ongoing support. This week, Peking University Professor of Finance Michael Pettis hit out at commentators who have argued that China just needs to reverse its last 3 years of what they argue have been poor policy decisions in order to return to healthy, sustainable, fast growth. Pettis argues that this is incorrect thinking, that the economic issues facing China are structural, and so its slowdown is structural too, and thus necessitates reforms that are much more difficult and systemic in nature. He argues that China's economy, as we know it, that is to say China's current economic growth model, has come to an end. Let's examine his thoughts. Quote, I think the optimists here have completely misunderstood China's economic developments. They believe that everything was more or less fine until shifts in policy making in the past 2 to 3 years towards more state and less market caused growth to slow, and that if only Beijing chooses to reverse these shifts, everything will once again be fine. But this is simply not true. China's problems began 10 to 15 years ago, when the success of its high investment model had reached its limits. But like every other country that followed this model, China found it too difficult to shift to a new model of growth. From that time, an increasingly large share of Chinese economic activity was driven by the non-productive deployment of resources and labor. As a necessary corollary, China's debt began to surge in relation to its now increasingly overstated GDP. It is incredible that after 2 decades of the highest investment share of GDP in history, China's investment share of GDP is nearly twice the global average and 1/3 higher even than that of other high-investing countries. Beijing's recent policy moves might not have helped, but in the end, there is no way to prevent a sharp reduction in the investment growth rate, and given its importance, there is no way this would not cause a sharp drop in growth. To return to growth, if it is to be sustainable, it is not enough to reverse recent policies that may have suppressed business exuberance. Instead, it will require a radical and unlikely transformation of the country's business, financial, and political institutions. End quote. Indeed, perhaps we may already be seeing this turbulence now. We will find out whether Pettis is accurate in his views and observations in the coming years, as we continue to follow China day by day, month by month, here on China Update. Tomorrow, of course, is the highly anticipated and likely historic 20th Party Congress. It's going to begin on Sunday, but we probably will not get much information until later on tomorrow or perhaps on Monday morning, and so there probably will not be an episode of China Update tomorrow. Hopefully we can all enjoy our rest day tomorrow on Sunday, but there will certainly be a return to regular episodes on Monday, and we will of course be looking at our first impressions, the first information we get out from this 20th Party Congress. Of course, if there is some sort of urgent or emergency news or something big that happens tomorrow, I will try to put out an episode tomorrow. Otherwise, I hope you all enjoy your weekend, have a lovely weekend, a good Sunday, a relaxing Sunday, and I will see you all back here for China Update on Monday.